They told him, "You are too good, but you are too black." And they tried to silence him. But he broke his silence in such a moment that everyone was unmasked. My name is David Johnson. I'm 41 years old. I grew up in Texas. My dad was a truck driver. My mom's a nurse. For 15 years, I worked as an engineer for a large energy company. I'm married, father of 2 daughters. I've built my life around my work, my family, and the values I believe in. But sometimes, no matter how firmly you stand, the system does its best to break you down. It all started at the end of 2021 in the middle of winter. The company had a big launch saying we are starting a new era. And with that launch, a new executive came in, Bradley Moore. The first thing he said when he introduced himself was, "I'm from Harvard. Where I come from, results speak." He was so confident, he acted as if we all had to be crushed under him. In our first private meeting, he looked at me and said, "You're the showcase of the company, David. Black, disciplined, polite. You're good for our image." When I first heard it, I smiled, thinking maybe he was making a bad joke. But as time passed, I realized that the joke was actually a point of view. He didn't see me as a person, but as a useful symbol, a window puppet. He would bring me forward in meetings and then claim the whole idea for himself. He owned everything as if I had never spoken. He was putting his name under my technical presentations. And I was aware, but everything was so skillfully hidden. When I objected, they accused me of being overly sensitive. They said, "Professionalism is measured by results, David, not emotions." And then one day, there was a small but critical error in a technical report sent to me. I noticed it and tried to correct it, but the version in the system was left as the wrong one, and that file was presented to the senior management exactly as it was. The day of the meeting came. Everything was going normally until that file was opened. Bradley stood up. He had a sad look on his face. Then he turned to me and said, "David is responsible for this mistake. Trust has been broken." In that moment, time froze. It was like the ceiling of my room collapsed in on me. He was so well prepared. Nobody said a word. That day there, I was publicly discredited. The following week, I got a call from HR. Attitudes contrary to internal values. Inappropriate behavior towards colleagues. No evidence. No eyewitnesses. Not even the right to a defense. There is only a report. A note at the bottom. Reported to have made discriminatory remarks. I left the room with a lump in my throat. People turned their heads in the corridors. No one could look me in the eye. Everything I had built for 15 years with the sweat of my brow, destroyed by a rumor, a signature, and a prejudice. It was raining when I went outside. But there was something heavier than the rain. The coldness of betrayal. They wanted to silence me, but they didn't know. Every silenced person starts to build up inside, and one day at such a moment it explodes. Even the strongest structures crack. Few days, I didn't know what to do in shock. I stared at the ceiling for hours at home. My anger, disappointment, and shame were mixed together. Was it really my fault? I asked myself, because the most effective way to destroy a person is to drown him in his own conscience. But then, one morning I looked in the mirror. I saw the tiredness on my face, and something inside me said, "This isn't you, David. You didn't deserve this. The people who did this to you are trying to steal you from you." That day I decided I would not be silent, but I would make my voice heard not by shouting but by planning, not out of vengeance, with a sense of justice. My first job was to collect the data. I archived every email I sent during my 15 years in the company. Presentations I made, reports, projects I contributed to. I opened each one by one, and I realized I didn't just work. I left my mark with the documents. Each presentation had a version date, metadata information in each file. So who changed when, who added what, who deleted what. They were all registered. Then I found out how Bradley had registered my presentations in his name. Same file, same images. Only the day before the presentation date, the titles were changed. I asked for Zoom recordings of some meetings, and you won't believe it, Hikmet. A lot of those records were missing, as if they had been deliberately deleted, but a few of them had been forgotten in the system. There were clear scenes where I spoke, but Bradley took the credit. Second phase witnesses. I had a few old friends I once worked with whom I knew honestly. I contacted them secretly. There were people who still loved me, who still believed in me. Some of them didn't want to take the risk, but there was one. Her name is Marissa. Marissa worked in the legal department of the company, and she supported me with one sentence. "Don't put me in this fight, but I'm behind you." He leaked me some procedural documents that showed that HR file was not prepared according to standard procedures. In other words, that report, which was prepared without my defense, was not legally valid. Third step, public opinion. One morning I went on LinkedIn, and I decided to speak there for the first time. I made a soft introduction. You have no idea how racial discrimination in the workplace makes some of you feel. I didn't give names, but I described my experiences with metaphors. Some people are only seen as window dressing. Their speeches are not listened to. Their achievements are embraced. That post, it went viral within 24 hours. Thousands of comments, messages of support, similar stories, and then a name dropped into my private message box. Angela Moss, a reporter for a business magazine. She offered me an interview. He asked me to tell you everything, but I was still careful. It was not yet time, because I still had my biggest ace up my sleeve. An email signed by Bradley Moore himself. In it, he wrote the following: "David will prepare the presentation, but for the image of the company, I should present it." That's it. It was the sentence that would end a career. That mail was the poisonous evidence that would unmask him. I planned every step. I listed all the documents chronologically with a timeline. I marked the points where the dates of the slanders against me did not match the facts. Through a friend, I found a good lawyer, a woman who specializes in racial discrimination cases, not just employment cases, Lisa Thompson. She looked at the file, then she looked up and said, "David, this is not just your fight. This is a fight against the rot in the system. Are you ready?" I nodded. "I'm not going to shut up anymore, Lisa. Now it's my turn to speak." And that day, we took the first step. And that day came. Months of silence, nights of preparation, and the reckoning of every word I had ever uttered were lined up in front of me at the door of that courtroom. Lisa, my lawyer, turned to me as she put on her glasses and whispered only this: "Are you ready?" I took a deep breath. This is the question I've been waiting years for. I'm ready. When we walked into the living room, Bradley was already there. Coffee in hand, relaxed, arrogant, as if he was walking into a presentation at Harvard. But when our eyes met for the first time, the look of contempt in his eyes broke, because in front of him was no longer a man who remained silent, but a man who turned his silence into a weapon. First evidence, the emails. My name on the original presentation file was deleted the moment it was sent, and in its place, Bradley's name was pasted. The metadata spoke no lie. Each file had a memory, and that memory spoke for me. Second evidence, Zoom meetings. A private meeting with him was recorded. He said to me that day, "You're an image to us, David, but we make the real decisions." That word, "we," it was there that I realized the moment he pushed me out of the system. When that sentence echoed in the courtroom, there was a murmur in the hall. One of the jurors bowed his head. When the judge took off his glasses and looked at me silently, it was a turning point. The third piece of evidence, internal messages. Here's what Bradley wrote to another manager in a Slack thread. "David's ideas are good, but if he's too prominent, he'll be misunderstood. Anyway, you would know." We all knew what he meant by "you already know," the color of my skin. The litigation process took 45 days. Each time the other side tried to come up with a new lie, but I had the truth. Years of labor, the silent violence I suffered, the invisible walls I was exposed to, all of them finally united on one point: justice. Last day, the judge began to read the text of the judgment. Every word penetrated me. The evidence is clear. The plaintiff's dismissal was motivated not only by business reasons, but also by prejudice against his identity. In addition, the defendant manipulated internal resources in his favor and conducted a systematic campaign of defamation. And the sentence ends like this: "This court shall order the restoration of the plaintiff's reputation, the payment of pecuniary and non-pecuniary damages, and the dismissal of the defendant, and a notation on his professional record." Bradley Moore. He lost not only his job, but his reputation, his contacts, his future plans. This headline in a newspaper summed it all up. He destroyed for the sake of image, but he burned his own career. The company issued a public apology, and that day, my 15 years of work became more than a few apologies on paper. I didn't just get what I deserved, I got my honor back. That morning, I woke up relaxed for the first time in years. When I looked in the mirror, I was smiling, because someone had silently tried to destroy me, but I made my silence a voice and took back my right. And you? Have you ever felt silently wasted? Have you ever felt like shouting out when all you've done is suddenly ignored? Write in the comments. This story is not just mine. I want to hear every moment that you lived. And if you want to be inspired by such true stories, don't forget to subscribe to my channel, because sometimes justice comes late. But when it comes, everything that has been silenced begins to speak.